Welcome to the Wednesday Honors Luncheon series.
Vinokur, and we are happy that he could join us. He's actually teaching. I was explaining that you were actually teaching and probably running to your class telling the students, don't run away, I'm coming. So you get the first Freddy is there at the back of the room. So you get to speak first so you can run to your things. And there are many students who emailed me saying that they couldn't come today, but they wanted to get this information. So we are taping this, or at least recording it, so to get information to students from this campus and from Stern who are very interested in this and couldn't make it today. So, welcome.
Well, I think he's hung up. Yeah.
Oh.
Well. Yes, this is what he said before about the connection. I think it's
okay.
messed up.
Well, at least you saw his face. That's something. That he exists, and it was not something I invented.
Is Professor Vinokur going to the...
Yeah. He's an expert on, well, he will tell you, but he's an expert on Russian literature, and he directs the Russian Studies Department at the New School and the Jewish Studies Department. They have a small program in Jewish Studies, and he's an expert on Jewish themes connected to Russian literature. He wrote about Jews in the 19th century Russia and Dostoevsky, etc. So he can tell you more about that. I'm not sure how much about this. The course is in general about Russian literature in St. Petersburg, but I'm sure that will inform a little bit what he does.
I can't tell if he's on or not.
What?
I can't
Yeah,
tell.
I can hear you guys now, but earlier you were,
okay.
Don't turn the camera on, because the camera
you were
goes
gone
up.
and
Okay, so speak and we'll listen.
Okay. I'm hoping that you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. Like I said, my class actually started about 3 minutes ago, and I'm actually teaching Anna Karenina today. So I gotta run over there. But thank you for the introduction, and I'm really excited about the prospect of teaching this course and traveling to Petersburg with you. The course is called Literary Petersburg: The Mind in the City of the Mind. And that sort of revolves around the fact St. Petersburg is a rather unusual place in that it was essentially a product of Peter the Great's imagination, his desire to build an entirely European sort of non-Russian city, at the time anyway, in a swamp on territory that had only been recently conquered by Russia. He built it and then turned it into his capital, and it remained the capital of Russia up until the Russian Revolution in 1917, 1918. And it's produced. It's an incredibly beautiful city, particularly in the summertime when the sun virtually never sets on it, and it's produced some of the most incredible literature of the 19th and the 20th centuries. So the course will start with Alexander Pushkin's The Bronze Horseman, about the statue of Peter that you've probably seen in the slideshow. That
And I will show it in a minute.
Yes, that Gabriel will show you. It'll move on to Gogol's Petersburg tales, such as the Overcoat and the Nose. No doubt you've heard of some of those, and then Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground, and then a 20th century work by the Russian Jewish poet Osip Mandelstam, his memoir of basically of growing up in Petersburg, called The Noise of Time. Very interesting book. And then, of course, we're going to travel to Petersburg, explore its cultural delights together, and during that time we'll also be reading kind of in the background Crime and Punishment, so we'll be able to see some of the locations.
Actually, I didn't tell you, but I was checking. It's very likely that the place where we are going to lodge is very close to the neighborhood that you will tell me the name, because I don't know how to pronounce it, where Crime and Punishment is described in great detail. this square, Senia Plochard, what is?
Yeah, the Haymarket. I'll say it in English.
Yeah, the Haymarket. Okay.
Yes.
We are going to be not that far from there, probably. In that neighborhood will be the neighborhood we will.
That's a really, really interesting neighborhood, actually. And so I didn't know that's what.
Well, it's not that far from the
classification.
synagogue, which we were looking for, and actually there are a couple of places. It's a possibility. We have not settled that, but it's
okay.
It's
Well,
a
in any case, that's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah.
So you know, I overheard a little bit of what Gabriel has told you about me, and it's
all lies.
I work on Russian literature and on Jewish literature. I also work on modern Jewish thought, including Emmanuel Levinas. And my first book was mostly about Dostoevsky and Emmanuel Levinas. Emmanuel Levinas was a very careful and avid reader of Dostoevsky, and so that was sort of that was one of the points of departure for my book. The other parts of my book were on Isaac Babel, whom I will be retranslating in the next couple of years, and Osip Mandelstam, who I just mentioned. So I'd love to stay and chat with you more, but I promised my students that I would be 10 minutes late, and we're approaching that mark. So I'm going to have to go and run off and start talking about Anna Karenina. But I wanted to thank you for inviting me and for offering me this opportunity to talk to your students, and hopefully I will meet most of you in a month or two when the New York portion of the course will start. I don't know if you can hear me or if you have.
Yeah, we do hear you perfectly well.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much, Val. We really appreciate you. You hear me, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll get to know you, or the guys will get to know you in person eventually. Thank you so much.
I look forward. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Okay, good. So now it's the turn of Professor Zypman. So we wanted to do this at the beginning because unfortunately, as you heard, he has to go. But we'll go over many of the things. But I wanted him to have a chance of saying something. And there you have the horseman to which he was referring.
All right, so I will be in charge of the
Sit.
Sit?
No, I don't know if you want.
Multiple chairs. I need to grow. All right, let me see. So I will be in charge of the science part of the course. I don't know if are you here? Are you interested in taking the course? Some of you, none of you, some. In any case, I mean, I'm going to ask a question to anybody. Is there anybody majored in science? Okay, what's your major?
You don't count.
No, I just want to, I'm interested.
I didn't raise my hand.
Physics maybe, and math. Math? Okay, and you do?
Also physics maybe.
Okay.
I'm not a science major, but I do need a science to graduate.
Yes.
Okay.
So because I was involved in this course 2 years ago, and we had a similar issue. So I need to know if there are science majors just to adapt the class a little bit. So it's going to be for all for the different flavors of students. But in general, it is to satisfy the science requirement. That's the main idea. That's the main idea. And so Professor Cwilich approached me with this very strange idea that he was going to teach a class in the summer. The honors program was going to teach a class in the summer to satisfy two requirements: one in literature, in the humanities, and another in science and on Russia. So I said, I cannot teach that course because what am I going to do with Russia and science? But okay, so then after we talked and I accepted, I figured that there was a way to do it. So there are of course many important scientists that are from Russia. And so the idea is not so much to teach about Russian science because that is nonsense. But the idea is to pick a few important scientists from Russia and understand the ideas and then talk about the ideas, not so much about the scientists. There are some, of course, some exceptions, like, for example, people that I really like Euler, who is really a mathematician, and he spent a lot of time in St. Petersburg. So we are going to use some of the things that he wrote volumes. He's probably one of the biggest together with Gauss and Archimedes. Probably Euler is the top mathematician. So, but what we are going to do is I'm going to pick on some of the ideas that Euler developed, in particular the Platonic solids that he studied, and I'm going to make a connection with modern science and technology. So there are connections about those shapes and nanotechnology, so we're going to talk about that. So to the level that we can all play and talk about those ideas together. Also, there are some scientists that work in some quantum aspects that have relevance today in optoelectronics, and for 20 years or like that. I mean, that's the technology in which the DVDs and CDs and all that is based. So we'll understand that. But the thing is that not only Russians developed that, also Americans and others. So we'll talk about everybody in that. So we'll also talk about Gamow, that originally was from Russia, but eventually came to the US. And he has very interesting popular books. He has a very interesting personality, and we'll talk in particular about the origin of the universe. Okay, and we'll eventually touch on even though Einstein has nothing to do with Russia, we'll touch upon those ideas and talk about how particles move in strange geometries, etc., etc. So those are just examples of things that we are going to do. All right, and so the course is going to be with for students with very little mathematical level, no requirements of that sense, and we'll do some practical experiences, go to the lab just for demonstrations, and develop even some computer code at the level that you can do it. So I'll give a problem to do, and you would use your knowledge. If you're up here, down here, if you're up here, so it's going to be a very flexible course for everybody. So do you have any questions? Yeah.
How much programming would you recommend that you should know?
Like zero, absolutely zero. Okay, and if you don't know anything, that's fine also. I'm going
to take. This is a course
it's not
to satisfy general education, so it cannot have any requirement. That means whatever you know is where we are starting.
Exactly. So whatever you need.
Having said that, probably what Freddy was, I'm not sure if you have this in mind. If there is a student who has a particular science background, we might give him something more interesting that he can look at, or we will point him perhaps when we are in St. Petersburg to do an interesting visit to a place that will be to benefit for him particularly. So we will adapt. That's what we do in those courses. But you are not required to know anything. You are not going to have to, oh, this guy knows a lot of science, I know nothing, so it's impossible for me even to pass this course. No.
No. The thing is that for the course, there are many activities. So there are the exams, and there are things that you're going to write. So depending on where you are, I will adapt the tasks to. So we did that 2 years ago. And
we had a science course together in Prague.
We did that for Prague, and that would revolve around Kepler and astronomy and things like that. But so for some students that were from the English major, I concentrated on writing essays, for example. And for those that were more science oriented, then there was some programming and some experimental activities. So that's the idea. Okay, but trying to focus on the concept from different perspectives. Now, on the other hand, I mean, this has nothing to do with the course. If you plan to be a physics major and you have, you know of a bunch of students that are interested in developing a programming course, taking a programming course with applications for physics, let me know, because that can, we are always looking for electives of that type to develop. Okay, any questions about the course?
I will complement a little bit when I show a few slides, so perhaps you can ask questions
Yeah,
later.
maybe.
You can stay for a few minutes, or you are in a big rush.
I want to go, but if you
No,
want me to
stay. Have some pizza. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit, and I will touch at the end. I mean, this is a collection of pictures that I got, and I didn't have too much time to organize them, but you will see that there are even too many. I want only to show 10 minutes, so to give you a chance to ask questions, for me to tell you about organizational details, but I wanted you to have a feeling what St. Petersburg is, and this is in front of the river, in front of the Neva. There is a gigantic park where this statue is, and that's the statue to which Val was referring, the bronze horseman that was written up, and it's a statue of Peter the Great. So just to answer one question that I was asked a lot, this is a map of Europe. Okay, so Russia goes all the way to the other wall. Russia is very big. This is only the European part. The Ural Mountains here separate the European part, and the Asiatic part goes all the way to Japan. Why do I point that? Because St. Petersburg is there where I put that point, the most eastern place next to Finland, in the Gulf of Finland, and we are going to be in the Gulf. And I wanted to point that to you because there are around 1,500 kilometers, more than 1,000 miles, 1,100 miles to Crimea, which is a place that is in the news lately. So you might be worried about that. I checked, that's the same distance from Paris to Crimea. So if you are worried about going to St. Petersburg, you also should be worried to go to Paris, because, you know, it's as much a distance, so this is a triangle indeed. So I wanted just for you to remember that. This is Peter, actually. As you heard from Val, what makes unique St. Petersburg of all the cities, certainly in Europe, is that all the cities in Europe are old cities that were evolved over 15 centuries, and part were rebuilt. You know, you go to Paris and you have a medieval part and a modern part and the wonderful part that was done in the 1900s, and all these things coexist. St. Petersburg was a plan. A man went there and said, I conquered this, this is the frontier. The big power at the time was Sweden, and against them he conquered the terrain, Peter, and in 1700, in the middle of the Enlightenment and the rationalism, I said, I will plan a city. He sent his architects to the best model in the world, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Amsterdam, and he said, you made me that, but only better. And indeed, that's what they did. You will see the beauty of the city. You see avenues where one palace next to the other. You cannot see that in Europe because, you know, palace is here and next are slums. Here he planned, and he said, this minister will build his palace here and the next one there, and that gives a lot of a flavor of the city.
He actually went to Amsterdam himself.
Well, yeah. I mean, and he brought, he was a sort of intellectual. He corresponded with Newton, with all the people of the time. I forgot that we have Professor Gellens, who knows a lot about Russia, so he can help us with that. So there you have another view, and there I wanted to show you two views of the city that you will never see.
Oh, wow.
The left is the subway. You will never see it because normally there would be 1 million people walking there. It's a very crowded city, and at any given time in the subway, when we will take the subway all the time, you will see it's full. That's a picture of one part of the Nevsky Avenue, the main avenue that I was describing before with all the palaces. And you never see that, not only because there is a little snow on the ground, but particularly because, as you see, that picture was taken at night. And we are not going to see that. Those are pictures of St. Petersburg. This is when people go to see the opening of the bridges. This is 1:30 a.m. This is, so, the end of the day. This is the beginning of the day, 2:30 a.m., when the day is starting again. So, as you see, you are not going to see a dark sky ever. Well, July perhaps, a little bit, 1 hour. I was there in mid-July, and I had an hour and a half.
It's on the entire time?
Yeah.
Until what time?
That's the White Nights. That's what we're going there. You can imagine how much we are going to do. 24 hours a day of a week. Actually, I'm not joking. Not only that all the bars stay open, the little cafe in the corner in a neighborhood that was forlorn where I was living stayed open the whole night, and the people were there having coffee. I say, why do you stay the whole night? I mean, you have 3 customers here. Well, you know, somebody comes, so the city lives forever in the summer, and that's the beauty. So here you see some pictures of the city.
When does Shabbat start?
Oh, don't ask me how they manage. That's a very good question, and I will have to find. I am trying to get in touch with Rabbi Pusner, who's the chief rabbi of the community. I don't know how do they manage with Shabbat and things like that.
Probably go to sleep on Saturday night, and Sunday morning you make Havdalah.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And actually, I will find out an answer, because I know people that are observant who have been there. I will check what they do and how they keep Shabbat.
So you
Excellent question.
1.5 dark, so then that's
Yeah, in July, but I believe that in mid-June there are times when practically dark is that the sky becomes a little darker, but it's very difficult to decide if it's dark or not. So I'm sure somebody thought about these things, and we will not have to invent it. And there is a community, and we will be with them and their guests. So here you see a few pictures of the main avenue I was describing, with the famous statue of Catherine the Great. I'll speak about her later, and a beautiful 19th century picture, one picture of the canals. But these are the cities crossed with these canals, and each canal has these wonderful bridges. This is one on the main avenue that has these 4 horses. Everybody speaks about that. And I was living in a hotel 2 blocks away for a while, so that's why I took the picture. And these are the canals. So the whole city is determined, and you can get confused, because sometimes the canals go like this, and you cross the same canal 3 times. And you can tour the canals, you can have wonderful views. There is a whole life, people sit by the canals to eat something, or that's one of the most wonderful characteristics of the city I wanted to show you. And what makes St. Petersburg unique is the culture. It was 200 years the capital of a big empire, and it still shows. This building, you probably must have heard, is probably the most famous, or one of the most famous museums in the world, the Hermitage, which was the palace of the king. That's where in 1917 the people entered and the Russian Revolution started, but most of it, like a few parts that you can see here, are still part of the palace that you can visit, and they have all the art of the world, because, you know, the Russians were very rich and they got everything. So the amount of Western art that you have there is totally incredible. And here you see a few pictures of the square in front of the Hermitage and some of the rooms in the Hermitage. Now I'm showing you from some other museums. This is one of my favorite places. It's called the Kunstkamera. It's the big museum of science. It's not a museum of science. It's a museum of sort of anthropology, but it has one floor devoted to the collections that they kept there during the 17th, you know, before we invented the idea of museums and of science, people collected interesting things, what they call curiosities, and they had these cabinets of curiosities. There are several in Europe, but probably the one in St. Petersburg is the best preserved. Also in that place is the whole collection of Lomonosov and the cabinet of Lomonosov reconstructed. And you see, that is the first big globe that we have, planetarium globe, where you can walk inside. They have tables of instruments, and they have a room that, if that grosses you up, be prepared, of all the anatomical curiosities that you can imagine, but rooms and rooms and rooms, and beautifully displayed. So of all the curiosities, calves with 2 heads, or whatever, twins that are joined, Peter collected everything he could, and he had one of the biggest collections. So that's one of my favorite places. Of course, the art. This is the Mariinsky Theater and the Alexandrinsky Theater, 2 of the most wonderful theaters. And certainly we will go at least to see one ballet, I hope. I mean, this is what made famous St. Petersburg, the Russian ballet, and people still go today. I didn't go to the ballet when I was there. I went to the opera, but in the Mariinsky. But we'll see some show, obviously, because that's a wonderful place, and the city is famous. All the tourists go there straight. I mean, other museums, they have wonderful. The Russian Museum is one of the most wonderful. It's the Museum of Russian Art, and it has incredibly beautiful collections. And here is the square. It's called the Art Square in front of the museum. That's the little house where Peter the Great lived while they were building his palace, which is 50 miles away from the city. So that's the Peter's hut, and that's part of the. That's from the Hermitage, I believe. Here you have some of the palaces that are outside the city. We will leave the city for a while. These two correspond to Peterhof, which is the main residence of Peter the Great, which is just in the Gulf. He wanted to be the first person that you would see when you came to Europe, actually, literally. I mean, he could from there, it's on the Gulf, it's 50 miles from the city. You can take buses, but you can take, if the weather is nice, a boat. And one fast boat that will take you in an hour and something. One of these Alice cars. Hopefully we'll do it. When I was there was a little bit of a storm, I couldn't. The other is the Palace of Catherine. It's called, I forget the name of the town, but here you have a view, and it's a wonderful palace also, but that's inland, and we will try to go there as well. These are sort of trips. This is one of the most famous buildings in the city. It's called the Church of the Spilled Blood, because there the Tsar in 1860, they killed the Tsar, and so where he was shot, they built, his successor built a big church. Probably not all of you will go inside, but if you would see that Russian Orthodox churches are not like the typical Protestant churches that are very austere and this is crazy. But from outside, the building and the market in front of there is so beautiful that I couldn't resist putting the picture.
What's in the picture, no?
Probably that's taken from there, but there are many buildings like that. But this one is the most particularly known. There are long lines of tourists trying to get in. But the square in front is beautiful. So here I put a few pictures of some of the authors we will try. This is Dostoevsky. This is represented in the museum, but these are a few pictures of Dostoevsky that, as you saw, will play a big role. We are going to even live in his neighborhood. And the soul of the city is very much given by him, but he's not the only one. Here we have Pushkin and Gogol. None of them were born in St. Petersburg, but spent long times. Pushkin died in a duel. Somebody insulted his wife. He fought and died. I went to have a cup of tea in the place where they told you, this table. He had his last cup of tea in 1835 before going out and getting killed. And Gogol was his friend, and they were very influential. That's the statue of Pushkin in front of the city hall. So you are going to read his stuff. But I brought some of the others. This is Lomonosov speaking, which was the great scientist that Catherine the Great in the 18th century brought to the city. That's Catherine in the main avenue, and that's the Alexandrinsky Theater in the back. And I believe I have, I thought I had more pictures of Lomonosov. This is Mendeleev. This is the great man that in the 19th century is sort of the father of chemistry. He created the first real table of the elements in 1870. He was a professor all his life in St. Petersburg, so he's a true Petersburgian. And we'll study about him, I'm sure. I mean, I love him as a scientist. Lomonosov is also, the city loves the scientists. You will see monuments to them. It's one of the few cities where all the monuments are not about some military something, are either writers or scientists. And it's wonderful to visit that. Here is Pavlov. Well, that's another picture of Lomonosov, but that's Pavlov, who in the early 20th century was one of the founders of a school in psychology, the first sort of scientific school of psychology, because he studied reflexes. And he's also very revered. When you walk into the university, there is a big statue of him. So perhaps I will be able to say something about his science, or we will bring someone who can. if Freddy doesn't want
no,
to.
no, no.
Want, I mean, he's one of also the great scientists that lived in the city. And that's it. I believe that those are the pictures I put. I wanted just to show them for you to get a feeling of what an exciting city it is. Now let me give you a few concrete details about the course. The program lasts 5 weeks, so it coincides completely with our first session of the summer. So if a student takes this course, you can come back and take the second session, because it starts the same day that the first session starts in New York, which is May 20-something, the day after.
26.
Whatever. I mean, there is a calendar. You go to the register page and you click summer and you have a calendar. Remember that we have 3 weeks in New York, but actually those are 4, because we have the first week, then it's the week of Shavuos, that there are no classes, and then 2 more weeks, or 2 weeks, Shavuos, and then 1 more week. So there is 1 week that Shavuos DCL falls in such a way that we completely miss a week of class.
What's the trip?
I am coming to that. And then June 22nd, we leave, which is a Sunday, after 3 weeks in New York, we leave for St. Petersburg, and we stay there for 2 weeks, 2 full weeks.
Until when?
July 5th, it's Sunday, July 5th. So the course ends Saturday night. We spend Shabbat there. Saturday night we'll do some nice activity, let's say Shabbat, to celebrate the end of the course. Sunday morning we'll get a flight back. If somebody for some reason cannot stay the last Shabbat and needs to leave early, you don't miss that much academic. You miss the wonderful experience of spending another Shabbat with the community there, but it's not the end of the world. So if you tell me I need to be in New York on Friday because Shabbos or Sunday morning, well, we can discuss that. But hopefully the group will stay there a full week, the corresponding Shabbat, another week and the corresponding Shabbat, and then Sunday morning we come back. So what else about the course? So while in New York, we will be a course in the classroom. The course that Professor Zypman is teaching will be in the afternoons, 2 to 4, every Monday to Thursday. So there are 12 meetings, so 3 weeks with 4 meetings each. The course that Professor Vinokur is teaching will not meet 12 times, will meet 9 times on a little longer classes. So it will be from 9:30 to 12:10 or something like that. So instead of meeting 4 times each week, we will meet 3 times each week. So they will have days in which you will have only a science class, but we might use it sometimes if we need to go here in the city to either to a museum or to something. It gives us a little more of flexibility scheduling. Yes, ask me a question.
Do you think we could get the schedule with all
the registrar is putting up a site, the schedule of which class, with the hours, you mean?
Yeah, the hours.
Yeah, there's I can send an email with that information, obviously, but the registrar is putting that online as we speak. So they are preparing a page where they are saying, this day you have class from this time to this time, etc. But it's very simple. Monday to Thursday, you have a class of science 2 to 4.
Yes.
Here, in this campus. In this campus. Monday to Thursday from 2 to 4. And the other ones is 3 times a week, which is normally Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But 1 week is Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Depends. The first week, the course doesn't start on a Monday because it's not Labor Day, Memorial Day. So the course starts in a Tuesday. Okay, so that week you will have a Friday class. That will be the only week in which, to compensate for the Monday, you will have a Friday morning class.
And we'll leave for St. Petersburg, you said?
June 22nd. Okay. To arrive there, June 23rd. It's not a short flight. It's around 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be there in the afternoon of Monday. But we'll make the most of it. Normally, in all our courses, we arrive to the cities at noon, and we could get something done that afternoon. We'll try. We'll certainly try the best, because I thought that to adjust ourselves to the new rhythm, the best thing is to go out, walk to the city, and you will want to walk to the city the minute you arrive. Remember that it's not going to get dark, so you want to be there and be tired to go to bed. So, what else? The exact cost to the cent will be announced in the website, but I can give you a rough idea, because that we know. It will be, last year it cost $4,000. This year it will cost probably $2,400, $2,450, we think, in that neighborhood.
For the entire course.
What
yes.
the entire talk? What does it include? Obviously, the tuition of the 2 courses and all the expenses connected to the trip. By all the expenses, I mean everything except your airfare to Russia, because students make different arrangements. They have a frequent flyer. Some continue to Israel. Some continue to countries in Europe. I mean, obviously, all those options are there. I will try to organize a group flight for those who go straight and come back, and sometimes you can negotiate a little better deal. Normally, it's not that much of a difference. You will need to get 50 people to get a very good deal. So, but you know, that offer will be there. But the rest, which means lodging, food, Shabbat accommodation, Shabbat food, and admissions to all the museums, transportation from one place to the other inside Russia. We might add a little trip, besides going on day trips, as I mentioned here, to the palaces, that is going for 3, 4, 5 hours. We might decide to do one more trip. There is a region that Professor Vinokur tells me is very beautiful to visit, where there are very old wooden structures that people go and visit, all the tourists that might require to go overnight. We will consider that if we cannot arrange a trip. Anything of that sort is all included. So the only thing that you need to have money for is to bring a present to your parents. But besides that, nothing else.
Also, if we want to go in for
The
flight
only,
around,
well, of course. I mean, if you know, I might take you around one night to have a beer. But you know, if you are the sort of guy who needs to go to have a beer every single night, bring some money.
Yeah, you said the pubs are open all night.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So absolutely. So there you are, and you know, souvenirs and things like that. The only thing that in this course we are not going to include, in all the other courses was like this is the first course in which we are going to a country that requires a visa for American citizens and for most citizens.
Yeah?
Yeah, Russia requires a visa.
For Latin America also?
I believe so. I didn't check, but I will ask. But depending on your nationality and the cost the Russian government charges may be different from different nationalities. If you happen to be Russian, you don't need a visa. So we probably will not include that, and we can process all the paperwork together because it's complicated. You don't actually go to the Russian consulate. There are agencies that collect all the information. You fill out forms online. And they will give us, if we process as a group, a small discount. Instead of the probably $200 that they charge, they might, I don't know, 10, 15% discount. I don't know if they will do it. They told me that probably they will. So that will be a part because, you know, somebody might have a different visa. Somebody might do it at the last minute and then it's more expensive. The cost is around $200 if you do it with enough time. And enough time is 2-3 weeks. If you do it with less than that, they will do it, but they will charge you more. So make sure you have passports, and once you are registered, we'll worry about getting a visa. But that's a new thing for me. I never had to process visas for students, but anyone who goes to Russia, even Professor Vinokur, who was born in Russia, and he left as a baby when he was 1 year old, and he grew up in Florida. But even Russians, like we have 2 colleagues in my department that are from Russia and came. They were Jews. When they emigrated, they have to renounce their citizenship. You know the story. They have to get visas, and for them it's even a little more difficult because you have to show some extra papers. So actually, not being Russian is an advantage to a certain extent. But if you are a Russian citizen now and you still have your Russian passport, then you are home free. So that's the only technicality that is new. What else about the course? Well, details about the trip you will get, and before we leave you will get the complete itinerary. This morning we are going to go to Museum X. This afternoon we are going to do that. We are going to meet this person who will give a lecture. We will interact as usual with the Jewish community as much as we can. There is the main synagogue, and most of the Jewish community is based around there. The Chabad, who seems to be very helpful, is 1.5 blocks away, and they have a very good relationship with the community, so we'll be between the two places. Since 2005, in the main synagogue, or in the building of the main synagogue, there is a very, very good restaurant, a huge restaurant with kosher food that apparently is quite good, and we are going to try to use them, although I am going to discuss with Chabad as well to see alternatives. Not every day we will have, and most of the days, we'll leave in the morning and go to places where it's not practical to cross the city again to come to have a bite, so we'll carry with us a few sandwiches, but at least once a day we want in the evening to have a nice hot meal, and that restaurant seems to have very good meals. You can go online, check the Jewish communities in Petersburg, check the restaurant in the synagogue, you will see that they are good. It's Ashkenazi food, so as you can imagine.
The community is Ashkenaz?
Yeah, it's mostly Ashkenazi. Yeah. So, I don't know, but I assume. The restaurant clearly says this is typical Jewish Ashkenazi food. So don't expect to see. Well, I saw that they have hummus, but besides that. Yes?
Is the trip open to both Yeshiva College and CERN? And how many people would be on the trip?
Okay, we are going to take as many as we can, above a number of, the most we have taken is 16. We are willing to go up to 20 this time. Much more than that is very difficult to move around.
20
in
everybody
museum.
Or 20 starting?
No, 20 in total as the population of the course. That's the most you can, because after that it's very complicated to get into museums, to get buses if you need to travel somewhere. So that's the maximum. The minimum will be also, there are considerations, the school is in some financial difficulty, so they told me, Gabriel, you're not going to go with 6 students. So you better get a good enrollment, and so I hope that you will become ambassadors and you will tell all your friends that you cannot miss this. So, with CERN, in the past, many times we had separate trips completely. They had their own courses. This time I spoke to Dean Bacon, particularly because in the last 2 years their courses didn't fly, and she was happy. Her only concern was, I don't want to have 2 women travel with 16 men. So if there is a considerable group of women, I will be happy. Now I have to work with them to make sure which courses does it count, but I sent the same announcement that I said to you, I sent to Stern, and 6 women responded immediately saying that they are very interested and can I go there to do the same presentation. Will they come? 1 year we did with Professor Zypman a very successful course that had a small traveling component in New York State, but we went for a week and we stayed in Brookhaven, and it was a group of men and women, and we were very happy with that. 3 years ago we had a course in France, was also co-ed and went very well. But 3 years ago I had a bad experience, I hope it will not happen again to me, that there were a group of 5 women that wanted to come. And they registered, but then one got a very interesting fellowship for the summer, so she quit. So another woman called me and said, only 4 girls? No, then I'm not coming, and she dropped. And then the next one called and said, only 3 women, I'm not coming. And then, it was a ladder, and none of them came. I hope this will not happen. I would love to have a co-ed group because it gives an interesting dynamics. If that happens, I will ask Josh Flass to come with his wife, who is an Stern alum and can help us and will be a sort of chaperone. We'll find the proper arrangements for everything, but I believe I would love if that happens. Can I promise that it will happen? No. I am willing to try it, but we'll see. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Alan is not here because Alan was a student who is interested in coming and came 2 years ago, so he was in a trip all male. Sruli Heller was going to come, I don't know where he is. He came to the last 3 summers because he loved them so much that he came to Germany, to Prague, and to England before. So he said that he would come, this time he's not coming, but he would come to tell us the story, why he believes that's the best thing you can do in YU. So
Madrid was pretty fun too.
what?
Madrid was pretty good too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you were there. Yeah, I forgot. Josh, when he was a student here, Josh graduated last year, came to the trip in Spain. So that's the one where that was Jewish history and language, and some. That's where a group of students from Spain were going to come, and they. Yeah, yeah. So.
Also, it was a very good trip. Obviously, all male. And,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Listen,
all over the country.
we will have fun no matter what. That I know. But it's wonderful. Believe me, St. Petersburg is a city that not only it's a very beautiful city, that of course you will see that it's a sort of a dream city, but it's a city that since it was planned that way, it's very connected to its culture. That's why Professor Vinokur is saying that he wants to teach the writers. You feel the presence of the writers all over the city. You see their monuments, their places where they left traces, the cafes. And the same is true with the science. It was a city very enamored for a long time of their scientists. And
You live there, Professor?
What?
You live there?
I know, I visited.
Oh, I visited.
But we have in our department 2 professors, and one was going to come in the trip. Finally, he couldn't. Professor Frenkel, who teaches at Stern, who was born there and lived there till his high school, and Professor Buldirev, who teaches in this campus, who was there even to the university, and came here. He's a man of what, around 60, and he must have left Russia in 1990. So probably he started his career there before coming to the States. So I don't speak Russian. I understand a little bit. Val, of course, does perfect Russian. And we will suffer together. I mean, we will suffer. Not everybody that you stop in the street will speak English.
No.
When you go in the main avenue and you go to the cafes, there are young people, and most of the young people speak English, and the tourists. But I have been in little museums, and there are wonderful museums for writers that nobody spoke Russian, and you have to suffer a little bit and make yourself understood. That's part of the fun of being in a different culture, that not everybody speaks your language or behaves like you, and that's one of the reasons to go, to learn how other people are. More questions?
So just to answer a question I think was asked before, if what Chabad.org says is correct, Shabbat starts at after 11 p.m. and ends after 2 a.m. So you wake up in the morning, you say Shachos, you make Havdalah, and then you go on your way. I mean, or whatever. But it's Saturday night, then you sleep.
So, gave arrangements for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's very interesting.
Yes,
the World Cup in Brazil will happen. Well, it happened in June when we are here, still in New York. But the finals will be there.
Yeah.
If no, they are in
If
Brazil.
Argentina is in the final,
Whoever is
that's the last
normally. Whenever we are in European cities, European cities are very into soccer. Either it's the World Cup, that happened when we were in Spain, that we went to, or the European Cup that happened when we were in Prague, and people concentrate in the big squares to watch the game. Depending on where it is, if it is in Brazil, it will be the games, if they are in Brazil, will be in the evening, I assume, which is 5 a.m.
It's day all day, so you
we might have to wake up to see a game at 6 a.m. I don't care. I mean, they are a lot of fun. I have done it in Florence. I was with a group with the students and a group of Spaniards, and the final was, or a game was Spain against Italy, and we were surrounded by 3,000 Italians, and we were a group of 20 Spanish speakers. And we survived. So that probably if I am there, I'll make time for the soccer games to watch at least. I mean, probably it's the final, so there will be a game in 3-4 days by that time. Most of the elimination is in early June when we are here. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, just like the sanctions on Russia that can be imposed can
Yeah.
be visa related, so they may
I
counter
understand,
that.
and I thought about that. If the U.S. government puts a lot of sanctions and difficulties for Russian citizens to get visas, they might be tempted to retaliate. That's something that I am monitoring. I hope it will not happen. But yeah, well, we don't. I mean, neither Obama or Putin follow the dictums of the J and Genie Shuttle the honor program. They should, but they don't. So if they did, it would be a different story.
Has enough money to.
Yeah. So we hope these things will not affect us. I would be cautioned, and they will tell me immediately, start your visa process 3 weeks earlier, because, you know, I checked. In theory, it's 11 working days. Is the cheapest of all the visas, so that means not if you pay extra money. It's 11 working days that they told me in the summer might mean 3 weeks. So that means that even during the 3 weeks of the course, you can get the visa. My hope is that students who register will start it earlier. I have to renew my passport. As soon as I get it, I'll start my visa.
When does registration open?
We will open it probably, I guess, in a week or two. What we will do is we will put a little application online. So honors courses are different. Normally, there is a procedure for students to register for courses during the year. The summer is a little bit different, so normally we put a little application telling us what sort of, some basic information that we need. What sort of passport do you have you traveled in the past, blah, blah. If you are not part of the honors program, give me one or two professors that can tell me you are a decent guy and you're not going to burn down the, I don't know. So we'll put that, and I will send it to anyone who requests it. I might put it even in our website. But immediately after we get that, the minute the registrar tells me they are ready, I assume it will happen in the next week or so that we will be able to open. Normally, we request from students when you register not to pay the whole thing. You pay a deposit. Simply because we have to reserve hotels, etc., performances to the theater, and then only before the course starts you actually go and pay the balance. So that means that we encourage people who are saying, I am pretty sure I am going, but I am not sure. I say, register anyway. You are not losing anything. You put a deposit that you will get back eventually. But that makes sure that if there is a boom of students trying to register, your spot is safe. Yeah, it's a question that I get. In previous years, we had some financial aid for students who couldn't afford the whole tuition. This year, we hope to have the same. The situation is difficult. There is not going to be as much as in previous years. Whatever financial aid is not merit-based, is need-based. So it has nothing to do if you are an honor student, or it has to do with what our student finances office thinks are your needs. So if you never applied for financial aid, they have any information from you, they will tell me you don't qualify, period. If not, they will tell me, yes, but the student can pay a little, or can try to help me as much as you can. As much as you can might mean whatever money we have. Again, probably people who register early will have an earlier shot at the money. Once it's gone, it's gone. So we hope to be able to give a little bit of financial aid, but probably it might not be as generous as in previous years. I am still trying to identify a rich donor that is so interested in sending science to Russia that will say yes. We did it. When we went to Spain, we found a donor who was very interested in promoting culture, Sephardic culture, and he gave us money to subsidize some students. So far, I don't have that. Yes?
I don't know if this question was asked, but if we already have both of those requirements.
Good point. So I thought about that. If you have the requirements, you have them. I cannot do too much. We consider the possibility, and I will have to discuss it. For example, what is your major? Hebrew. Okay. Because,
I may add something.
you see, I was going to consider the possibility, for example, that students who already satisfy the requirement can, perhaps with some supplementary reading, count it as a course for their English major.
Yeah,
so that might be a possibility. We depend on the willingness of the English department, but I assume this is not out of the question.
Okay.
For example, when we had courses in Jewish history, Some students could do some special readings, an agreement if they already had satisfied the requirement, and counting as an elective in Jewish history and still get credit. You still will get the credit if you participate in the course, obviously, but there is not too much I can do. In the sciences, it will be more difficult.
No, I'm thinking.
You think that there is a possibility
I'm asking,
for a student with a major in the sciences?
If they have the natural world, let's
yeah.
say, can it also satisfy the EXQM in case they need it? Because they are...
If you are going to add enough experiments and so on, because remember, the natural world doesn't have experiments, but the EXQM requires to learn experimental techniques.
So maybe that
science students don't need the EXQM, so won't help them that much.
But for students like that,
like him, that is a possibility. We will need to discuss it with the director of the core. It so happens that the director of the core is a strong believer in international trips, and she has helped me a lot in the past to have flexibility. Last year we had a course in cultures over time, but for one student it counted as contemporary world culture because it was mainly 20th century. So I want to hear your specific situation and try to work with you. So, we will get some. I cannot promise miracles. It doesn't depend on me. Credit in English is given by the English department, credit in whatever history is given by the history department. But having said that, tell me your case and we can try to see. Yes?
During the New York section, so besides the slight scheduling differences, will there be 2-hour sessions every day?
Besides those...
Besides the one day when it's
there will be classes. So it's like taking 2 courses. Only that. So in reality, you are taking 2 courses. One is in the morning, one is in the afternoon. Only that once we get there, we are not split. We are one group, and we are going to go together all to see perhaps a science exhibit, perhaps a literature-related exhibit, perhaps an art exhibit, and we are one group, and our schedule reflects the interests of the 2 courses. So once we are there, it's one group. But while we are in New York, it's like 2 courses, and each professor will have exams or a field trip or whatever. We obviously coordinate because, it's the same students, but in principle it's 2 courses, and you will get 2 grades at the end of the day. So each professor will tell you what to do. Most of the work, writing, test is done here. While we are traveling, there is not too much time for that. So perhaps you will be asked to keep a little diary of something, or do some reaction to something we see. But most of the work of actually formal classroom is done in New York. We might have one lecture, some interesting professor from Russian university can come and speak to the group. We might meet, someone from the Jewish community, but the most formal part is here, and there is more visiting, getting to know places, etc. Yes?
So there will be tests and papers?
Well, while we are in New York, it's a regular course, and you get academic credit, obviously, and satisfy requirements, so they will be, depending on the modality. I mean, probably not, I'm not sure if you are going to ask for papers, it might be a test. In the literature, I believe Professor Vinokur, we can ask him. He had the idea of asking for one big paper either at the, I'm not sure. In other courses, what we did is the professor asked for a paper that was due 3 weeks after the trip. Because, some students were somewhere else. In one case was done, by the end of the summer, but I don't know how he organized that. And I will ask him to explain that a little better. But it will be no different from taking a summer course here during the first 3 weeks at least. And so please, tell friends, because the more of you to come, the sooner we will know and the administration will give me the green light. And students in YU like to keep their options open, so they all agree at the last minute. And this year probably will have a little less flexibility than that because of the visa situation. So we will need to commit early.